A year ago, Magic the Gathering celebrated its 30th anniversary by trying to sell you a load of shit for too much money. Magic the Gathering's 30th anniversary edition was a selection, 4 boosters for $1,000 that included Magic cards from the original Magic the Gathering set from Alpha. The catch was these cards were not legal in tournaments. They weren't literal reprints. The reason for this being is that Magic the Gathering, via Wizards of the Coast, the company that makes it, has promised never to reprint the original cards from certain sets ever again. It's called the Reserve List. To get around this, they've printed them on different card backs and thus made them not tournament legal, but ultimately they want a bit of their cake and to eat it. But it didn't work. Critics like myself mocked the whole idea. The idea of trying to sell us proxies for $1,000, things that we can print off at home. If they aren't tournament legal, what's the fucking point? When it came to sale on 28th of November 2022, it sold incredibly poorly. The exact numbers we'll never really know because Wizards will never tell us, and there's all sorts of rumors floating around about how much they sold. Most of these are propagated by people who want to create this lie that it's perhaps more scarce than it actually is in order to be able to sell this stuff to people, to make it into some sort of financial end goal. I would take rumors around the sheer number of copies of this thing out in the wild with a pinch of salt. There is a alternative motive coming from many creators. I'm not saying it's insider trading or market manipulation, but I guess you could compare it to that. The exact numbers we'll never know. I was incredibly happy when the sale failed. It was egg on the face of Wizards of the Coast trying to sell us a load of shit for a ridiculous price. It was A, literal proxies, they were not tournament legal, but B, it also marked the throwing of the yardstick into the trees, into the woodland, to see just how far they could go in terms of pushing the audience on what they would pay. I've said this time and time again as I've done consumer advocacy content like this, where I talk about how Wizards are pushing the price of what they charge us on Commander products, on draft boosters, and on limited edition special shit like this, to see how far they can push it, how far they can mark it up before it snaps and we no longer want to play ball. They pushed it too far, or at least they threw it way too far. They've reeled it in since, and Commander Masters seems to have been a success in spite of silly price hikes, so they're going to continue to test the audience. But the really fascinating thing from all this going forward is that some of the cards from the original Anniversary Edition are now worth some money, at least if you look at some sales on secondary market websites. So let's take a look at that, shall we? If you want to pick up single product or sealed product, you can use the link in the description below to go to coolstuffinc.com. Use the code KENOBI, check out to get 5% off your order and to help support the show. If we look at TCG averages and card market averages for things like Savannah's going to be our use case here. We've got Savannah's floating at $193.17. The pristine, clean, new proxy that Wizards give us is now $200 that were found in some of these packs. This makes it more expensive than the collector's edition ones that come with golden backs. Hell, it makes it only $100 short of 3rd edition and revised ones, where with white borders, you're looking at around $300 for Savannah right now. So if the stuff was shit and no one really wanted it, why is it suddenly, or I say suddenly, why is it keeping a price tag over time? I actually struggled to find a price graph grid. Goldfish didn't have any, which it normally would. Although TCG Player had our back here with a market price tumbling downwards from $250 to $190 on their price grid of the last 3 months. Part of the reason they're going to hold some value is that the original product was so expensive that people just won't sell them for below a certain amount to try and get some of their money back. In short, putting it onto the market for such a premium price, and it's going to demand a higher price tag when people try to resell bits of it. This is only further exaggerated by the fact that it's scarce. Regardless of what you think about artificial scarcity or what Wizards do with artificial scarcity, in this case, it's more scarce than they ever imagined, because no fucker bought it.
Dog's milk!
Nothing wrong with dog's milk. Full of goodness, full of vitamins, full of marrowbone jelly. Lasts longer than any other type of milk, dog's milk.
Why?
No bugger would drink it.
There's 2 really interesting cases of this that I wanted to talk about in this video. This is a bit more of a hastily put together video because I've been off work and I'm sick, so bear with me if I haven't got all of my facts in a nice, well-presented way. I just want to talk to you anecdotally about one thing, factually about another, and then my thoughts on how that relates to the Savannahs and tropical islands of Magic's 30th edition. I was in a BMW garage recently looking to trade my car in and buy a used car, and I saw what I think was a BMW Z3. I think it was the car that is very briefly seen in GoldenEye. or one, not the actual car, but that model. He told me, and this is all anecdotal because I actually struggled to find any backup information on this on my little bit of Googling. I'm sure it's somewhere on the internet, and someone hopefully can tell us in the comment section a bit more. But anecdotally, the car salesman explained to me that, that's so funny, that my source here is a car salesman I met. I do appreciate that that makes this way more into a storytime video than some sort of hard-hitting piece of journalism. The car was rather expensive for a 90s like roadster. It was like, so I asked the guy we were dealing with for our car, why is this so expensive? But he said these were promotional Z3s that were made in line with the reveal of the Z3 and GoldenEye coming out and so on, but they were left-hand drive, but produced for the European market, where in England, for example, we have right-hand drive vehicles, and thus no one ordered them, and thus not many of them actually got produced, these left-hand special versions of Z3s, and thus they've gone on to fetch a high price in the secondary market because no fucker bought them. I have Googled and I have Googled, even during the editing of this video I'm Googling, I can't find this left-hand drive promotional Z3 stuff. I can find loads of history on the Z3 being part of the marketing for GoldenEye. So I don't know if this car salesman has lied to me. I generally thought about cutting this bit from the video, but I'm going to keep it in and just be really clear that I'm not 100% sure on the details of this one. Maybe he was making this up. Either way, he said there's a reasonable number of these made, but they never really sold. And most ones that did sell sold to Americans who are more infatuated with the Bond mythos and willing to have a car that was on the left-hand drive. In the UK, our driver's seat's on the right-hand side, by the way. So when we're driving on the left-hand side of the road, we get better vision of the road, and that's how you go. Americans have it the opposite way around, right? He said that because of how the car sold so badly, they're actually much more scarce and rare on the secondary market for car enthusiasts than they should have been, and thus they demand a much higher price tag than you would have expected from a car that was reasonably mass produced. He said there's only a few of them floating around. It's actually really hard to procure one because so few of them sold. Let's go back to trading cards for a second. Let's talk about Pokemon. This Team Rocket Special Edition 20th Anniversary Edition briefcase sells for 10k at the moment. Maximofo recently opened one of these back in May on his Pokemon channel. Inside this metal Team Rocket briefcase is some Team Rocket sleeves and two cards, two gorgeous cards, one copy of Team Rocket Blast Off and one copy of Boss's Orders, probably one of those beautiful boss orders you ever see, and a coin, a Team Rocket coin. It sells for 10,000, but it didn't retail for that. It originally retailed for 128 US dollars. The thing is, 128 US dollars for a collectible briefcase like this was considered too expensive at the time that it retailed. The briefcase came out 5 years ago at the 20th anniversary. It was before the big boom for Pokemon in terms of content creators like Jake Paul getting into it, pre-COVID, where people were spending their government checks on it. There's a lot of things that happened to Pokemon since this briefcase was put on the market on the Pokemon Center. It was made to order, and people just considered it too expensive who were into Pokemon collecting at the time. Again, I'm talking anecdotally from forum responses, people talking on social media about this after the fact. For this reason, very few of them actually sold, and it became a relatively rare item to see floating around in collections in the wild and on secondary market websites. And thus, as it became rarer and rarer as time went on, 5 years passed, we now have it selling for 10,000, and that price is slowly climbing up. It's a desirable thing with two playable game pieces that are of an alternate art style to two popularly and easily accessible game pieces like Boss's Orders. Honestly, if Magic the Gathering tried to sell me a metal briefcase with some sleeves, a coin, and two promo art things for $120, well, I'd say it's pretty expensive, but weirdly, I think I'd be okay with it. The briefcase plus sleeve plus coin plus alternate arts is just so unreally fancy. At $120, it feels cheap compared to the fucking prices that we're getting on current stuff. Made to order, limited run for the anniversary, I can kind of get behind that. Instead, what Wizards of the Coast did was give us $1,000 non-tournament legal versions of cards that everyone still wants from the reserve list, stuff like Savannah's and Power 9. Yikes. So ultimately there is an element of actual scarcity coming off the back of people just not buying the stuff. And thus there's less of them in the wild, so when there's any amount of demand, the price will climb up. All that said, and with the James Bond promotional car example and the Team Rocket briefcase example from Pokemon cards, I don't know if that's actually what's happening here. It's potential, but I also do wonder if people are just inflating the price so they can try and make some money off of a thing that looked like they're going to make money on it, and when they bought it and no one wanted it, they were left holding the bag, shall we say. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Hell, I'm not much of a finance guy. I'm a gamer, if you will. Not with a capital G, though. Part of me has to ask who the fuck is buying collector edition 30th anniversary $200 or $300 Savannahs instead of just spending a bit more money on a real one, or a tournament legal one, should I say. Ultimately, they're all pieces of cardboard made by a game company. I have to wonder out loud, are people buying and selling these in the hope that they will be the one who makes some profit off of this and isn't left with the item when it really truly starts to rot? Or are financier types within the Magic community going to say this stuff's worth money because it arbitrarily is, because Wizards of the Coast printed it at some point? I mean, the value of an item being printed by Wizards of the Coast it's all kind of arbitrary anyway, isn't it? The value we place upon the official stuff printed by Wizards. And I do think that's a good thing on the whole. I do think that Magic's entire infrastructure is held up upon this base of stores and game stores being able to sell singles and make some money and support the whole ecosystem. I've never really been for burn the whole thing down, but I am completely anti Wizards of the Coast being able to sell its proxies, and then after the fact, after it's failed, to have financier types or MTG Finance claim these things are worth money and try and sell them to us and pretend they're desirable, because they're not. Fuck them. I just thought it was really, really interesting when I saw the Team Rocket example and heard that people didn't want to buy it initially and then it rose in price after the fact. And those cards look way better as an alternative version than the new frame versions of Savannah do. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you think these collector edition cards are worth something for some reason? For some nebulous, arbitrary reason that you can't quite put your fingers on? Or do you think it's all just bollocks? People trying to make back some of the money because the initial investment was so fucking high. People telling you something is worth something so they can make money on the already inflated price that they paid on it originally. That's not how natural supply and demand works in terms of card games. It sounds more closer to an NFT. I've been Vince, also PleasantKenobi. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll see you for another video tomorrow. Ta-ta for now.